Okay, looks like we are live right at the last second. We got everything working here. So, good evening. Welcome to Moto Talk with Steve and Kim. I'm Steve. That's Kim. Oh, why does that say close calls on there? Oh, I gotta change that. Yeah, we're gonna talk about something different than close calls. That was the last time.
We're going to talk about something that can cause one.
Yeah, we're going to do that. But let me go fix this. You wanna introduce anything while we're at it? While I go and fix this real quick.
Welcome to. We're not too far from actual summer. The weather is up and down, rainy and not so rainy. It's been the last couple of days with the humidity has changed it quite a bit. I've not always been a proponent of all the gear all the time, but I think you should be wearing gloves and boots and that sort of thing when you're out there riding. So hopefully you are doing that. I also tend to have a jacket that at least passes some wind. The only real reason I do that now is because if I'm riding a motorcycle without a lot of wind protection, something comes up off the road, which happens fairly regularly, and hits you. If you've got a jacket on, at least you got some protection. And if you ride a lot, it happens more often than it doesn't. So it's just something to take your attention back to riding and stay away from other issues that might happen.
Yeah. Welcome, everybody. Hey, Aaron. Hey, John Hill. Hopefully you can hear us. I'm assuming so. We got to talking and we forgot to test our mics and all that. So in like 5 seconds, we figured this stuff out. Hey, Dusty.
Yeah, I saw a Jaguar today on the road. It was just like Dusty Pines, and I took an extra minute to look and see if it was him, but it wasn't.
Dusty Pines with a Jaguar. That doesn't fit to me.
It's his automotive girlfriend.
I've always seen him with the Moto stuff, the old school paint and motorcycles.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, everybody. Okay, we're going to talk about splitting lanes or lane splitting. And if you don't know what that is, maybe you're new to motorcycle riding. Hey, Keith Davis. Splitting lanes is when, let's say, you have a 2 lanes, more than one lane going one way. And that's when the motorcycle goes in between the cars on the dotted lines and to get ahead. Now, I think the original idea of this was for slowed to stopped traffic or stop lights where the motorcycle can sneak ahead to the front of the line. And then when everything goes green, they can kind of take off because they're a little quicker. And some of them are air cooled and need to keep moving.
And they're smaller.
And they're smaller.
They don't get hung up by the fact that there's a car in the way in the lane. You can go around in between because you've got plenty of space, generally. Presuming everybody stays in the same place.
Generally. So,
yeah.
If I'll go ahead and pull this up. I might as well put this on.
So this is really common in other countries.
Very common.
People pay no attention whatsoever to lanes, and if you can do it on your vehicle, you can get it done.
They invented lane splitting, and they didn't even know it was lane splitting.
Yeah, right. So as I'd mentioned when I rode with Aaron in Kampala, people rode on the sidewalks while the pedestrians were walking on the sidewalks. Yeah. So it wasn't unusual.
In the Dominican, the bus went. He would split the oncoming and the other lane just to get around people.
Nice.
It was crazy. But anyway, here's a map. This is from 2019. This is showing the only state that actually has this legalized is California. And then you have the states where it's quote unquote illegal in the gray. And then we have some not mentioned, but not specifically
prohibited.
Right. And then I didn't even read this one earlier. Currently considering legislation relating to it. And then blue is a modified version have been legalized in Utah. I mean,
yeah, I don't know what that means.
Split over there?
Well, you're in Utah, so you might be the only thing on the road, right?
Yeah.
So I have some practical experience riding in California with some regularity, and I went out there several times over the course of a few years, and I would rent a motorcycle every time I went. And there was a guy that I saw every time I did it that said, "Hey, do you plan to lane split?" And I would say, "No."
Nope.
And he would say, "Oh, you should do it. It's California. You know, it's really good. It's legal here. You can get around traffic. If you get stuck on the 405 and you need to go around, you can do it that way." I said, "Yeah, but I'm not comfortable with it and I'm probably going to pass. So, thanks, but I'm going to not do that." So I went 3 or 4 times in a row. The third time I went, after having that conversation, he met me at the rental dealership with a full body cast.
Oh, well.
And I said, "Where'd you get that?" And he said, "I was lane splitting."
A door?
Yeah.
Or something.
And he was going like 60 and other traffic was going 20. And somebody opened a door and he went head over elbows, and that was that. And Aaron says Uganda is only land splitting. I guess that means if you're not on the road, you can go wherever you want.
You're just going down the land. Yeah. Hey, Gregory, Randy, Indianapolis Vintage Motorcycles, Indiana Motorcycle Riders. Hello, everybody. I think I forgot to post on the Indiana Motorcycle Riders page, but we'll get that next time.
Yeah, but Greg knew it.
I'm going to just give my opinion about this thing. And then you give your opinion.
I'll give my opinion after you do.
And mine will be right and yours will be wrong. No, mine will be mine and yours will be yours. But so here's my thought. And I guess as I'm getting older, I think more about safety. I don't know why. Maybe I'm starting to get wiser. Maybe not. I don't know. Probably not. But he's already questioning.
I doubt that.
When it comes to riding on the streets in traffic, I'm just more cautious than I was, 10 years ago. And when I think of lane splitting, I like the idea of, okay, you get on an on-ramp, you're on the highway, it stops up and it's got some slow moving traffic. You're riding an old CB750 air-cooled bike and you need to keep moving for it to stay cool. There has been 2 times here in Indy where I got on 65 or 70 and all of a sudden the traffic stopped up. One time was actually on the way it was with Keith. We were on the way to bike night at the Steer Inn back when it was there. And everything came to a halt and we're sitting there and we're sitting there and we're sitting there on our vintage bikes and they're getting hot. And it's just like, okay, we actually turned around, went off the on-ramp and took a different route.
You and I did that another time.
And that's right.
Yeah,
so that
you
was
and I
the
did
second
that
time.
on 65 where traffic was, but we did it to avoid the traffic and go another route.
So I can see that point. Then I can see the point of, I think one of my buddies who lives in China mentioned something. Let me see if I can go find that. And then we'll actually go down through this list of people that mentioned some things. Here it is, Barry Haley. He's for it. He says it works well in Taiwan and China. The bikes go in the front at every red light and even take off and do left turns before the slow oncoming cars can really get up to speed. It frees up the crowded traffic. Now, that's a different situation than here in the U.S. I mean, that traffic is like mostly motorcycles, I would say. A lot of it is very, very dense motorcycle traffic.
Yeah.
And here, it's mainly cars.
Yeah, way less.
So I'm for that. But what I'm not for is the cars are going to have a hard time getting used to this if legislation went through and all that. First of all, when you're downtown and someone's parking and you're lane splitting between the parking lane and the drive lane, people are getting out of their cars. You got doors opening, you got people, getting ready to cross the street.
Yeah.
Then you have people turning lanes without even looking.
Yep.
So, or changing lanes without even looking. So I can see there's going to be quite a hazard there. Now, maybe after 3 or 4 years of that happening, cars will get more used to that and start looking. But when they're busy putting their makeup on and checking their texts and their Facebook messaging, I don't know how soon that could happen.
Yeah, frankly, I think the only people who pay attention in cars to motorcycles are people that ride motorcycles. I don't think people that are driving cars generally pay any attention to the cars or the bikes. It doesn't make any difference to them at all.
Right. And I'm definitely against like a high speed lane splitting on the highway.
Yeah. So in California, because it's legal, you can do it any way you like. And in some scenarios, people are going 65 miles an hour in let's say a 45 zone, and a bike might be going 90 and split that lane. And that happens with some frequency. And I've seen it. I've been in the lane of traffic on a motorcycle going 80 miles an hour and had somebody on a sport bike blow past me in the middle going 100 plus. Yeah. And the police there don't blink an eye to it. Nobody pays any attention. But there are lots of incidents.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I'm about freedoms and all that stuff. And of course, you know, we're both motorcycle enthusiasts. We like everything about it. I just think that it's a tricky one. I don't think you can be on either side and totally be wrong, but there's a lot of good points and bad points about each side.
Yeah. So for me, it has very little to do with you and the motorcycle and a lot more to do with everyone else in that space you're in. And almost everybody would fail my test of competency in a car.
Yeah.
You know, so there's
Right.
very few people in the
Yeah.
cars around you that behave normally or what you
Right.
would consider acceptably. And I would say, no, that's terrible. That it's that way, but it is that way. And you have to think realistically about that. And like, I'm just realizing I'm wearing my Dud Perkins Harley shirt that I got in one of my trips to California, one of the oldest Harley Davidson dealers in the country in San Francisco. And while I was there, I was riding on the Pacific Coast Highway by myself on a motorcycle. It was a Harley. And I stopped in a big line of traffic, and about 20 bikes came through that traffic right to the front of the long line of traffic,
Mm-hmm.
in between me and the next lane. And we were sitting at a stoplight, and I was just chatting with the guy next to me, and they took off. And all those motorcycles stayed nose to tail between all those cars all the way out. And I thought, man, you guys are nuts.
Yeah.
Because not only is it a contiguous line, but the traffic is going to change lanes sooner or later.
Yeah.
And if they have nowhere to do it, they'll probably do it just out of spite. And I think there's an awful lot of road rage today. Maybe a little bit more than there has been, only because the advent of COVID kept people indoors. And when they finally got back out again, maybe their skills were lousy.
Yeah.
Maybe they were not up to speed. Maybe they're frustrated. I don't know. But it seems to me like there's more and more of that on the road every day.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure most people are enchanted with bikers that have more, look like they're having more fun.
Yeah. And I think that there's also, it seems like it's been like this for a long time. I drove tractor trailer for 15 years with FedEx. And it just seems like there's a contest of who can get there the quickest, who can stay in front, who can get around the other guy. And people don't like it when someone else goes around.
No, and we were talking about this before we started, and it is kind of the general rule. Everybody wants to be in the front. And if everybody wants to be in the front, not everybody can be in the front. And that person who's working hardest to get there is probably the most hazardous risk to everybody else that's out there.
Right.
For me, and somebody pointed this out in comments before we started, they like to stay ahead of the traffic. And I'm one of those people that feels that way. I like to stay ahead of the traffic. I'd much prefer to be going faster than traffic generally than having traffic passing me a lot or moving around in front of me and around me. If I'm going faster than they are, then at least I can see what's in front of me and stop worrying about what's behind me. Lane splitting aside, I personally will choose not to do that. But it really has very little to do with where I'm going or what I'm doing, and more to do with who's out there wanting to maybe get angry that I'm doing it at all. I think that can be too risky.
Right. Yeah. So let me go to my page here and let's go down a few of these comments. We've got Matt Ring. He's for it. If done correctly, of course. Reality is if I'm in front of all the traffic, they have less a chance of hitting me. Brian Graney up in Chicago, my safety and theirs. He's for it. My concern is how long it'll take to train Midwesterners to realize it's legal and that we are actually in that space. So yeah, I think just the learning curve is going to be a lot there.
Yeah, I think that whole premise is crazy because I don't think you can train anybody to do anything, especially people that don't care.
I mean, it's an education thing. If you talk to a car driver, a kegger, whatever you want to call them, and you say, okay, this is what it's for. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, it's going to help traffic. Well, you have to get that education out there. But let's see, who else we got?
Frankly, I'm surprised we have so many fours.
There's a lot of fours.
Yeah, I'd say way more fours
Rob
than against.
Benjamin, as long as it's done safely and with caution, but doing it in dense traffic at high speeds is too dangerous. Dean Mays for it. Eric Sowers for it. Greg Bryson, he lives in my neighborhood here. Biker car, I ride at times, and for myself, we need to sit still on the bike or not. I think he was doing like a text to voice to text thing here. Yeah, he's all about basically just the knowledge of the other drivers, knowing that it's a illegal thing to do.
I like Larry Roman's answer. It says no.
Chilling with us.
Yeah, nope. I'll take
Larry,
that. That's how I
nope.
feel about it.
He's a nope. I don't think we have that much traffic where it has to be. It's like a necessity.
Yeah,
it would be more of a convenience. What are you looking for here?
Well, I see Michael Rapps. He's talking about the quail. I'm presuming means the Quail Lodge, the concours there. And whenever there's a big event, I'm going to go back on something I said. I've said that I don't do it and I won't do it, but I will admit that during the 500, if there's been traffic that's a parking lot on Crawfordsville Road or even 465, and I'm on a motorcycle, I'm going around them. And I've done that several times. So technically, I've gone outside of my lane and sometimes in between the cars. Yeah. But I think it's very hazardous, even doing it then.
Yeah, so Roger Swartout, good friend of us in the shop. He's for it and he's a rider. I mean, he puts miles and miles and miles on his bikes. When he worked for downtown Indy, he says it would have been helpful. I had cars get hit in the lane beside me. I was just thankful it was not in my lane. And then, of course, we're down to Barry Haley, my buddy in China, and he's lived in China and Taiwan and a bunch of Asian countries. So, like your daughter, he knows what that traffic is all about.
And I think
how crazy it can be.
The way it looked to me, the places I've been where there was traffic like that would include something like Bangkok. And in Bangkok, everyone is working pretty hard to get where they're going. And even the drivers in cars seem to be paying attention. I don't know if that's because they've gotten used to being so crowded on the road or whatever. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I didn't see a lot of crashes, even though we were out in public a lot. Right. And I think it has a lot to do with who's driving and who's taking public transportation, because a lot of people ride trains or they take some other subway or something like that. So what do we got here?
You want to read this?
This is California.
Ron Mahoy sent this to me.
Oh, Indiana code.
Yep. This is a Indiana code right here for.
So it says Universal Citation Indiana Code 921.10.6 in 2017. Restrictions on traffic lane use. Section 6. A motorcycle is entitled to the full use of a traffic lane, and a vehicle may not be driven or operated in a manner that deprives another vehicle of full use of that lane. Motorcycles other than autocycles, not sure what that is, may, with the consent of both persons who operate the motorcycles, be operated with not more than two abreast in a single lane. Okay, so that means that if Steve and I are riding down the street, we can ride side by side. We can ride side by side.
Yep, and we can turn side by side. We'd be just like chips.
And I'm going to transition right to that idea. I think that's dumb as hell. Riding side by side is a bad plan. I know you can do it. Yeah. But I like to be staggered at least a little bit. And I've ridden next to some people that were great riders. Yep. It still made me nervous. I've ridden next to some people that were terrible riders, and it really made me nervous.
The stagger is way better.
Yeah. I just don't think it's a good idea. And I'm going to say this out loud. There are going to be people on this thing that are going to say, no, you're a moron. But when you're riding in a group that's larger than 2 or 3, I think it's a mistake, because you're trying to anticipate who's in front of you going where, what's happening behind you, who's next to you, what you're coming upon, what you just left behind. All of that stuff scares the shit out of me because it gets out of control pretty quickly, because you can't be of one mind about what you're doing and where you're going and trying to make it through lights at the same time or stop at lights at the same time. And if you're paying attention to the other people you're riding with, you're not paying attention to the circumstances in the road and
you're not seeing down. Yeah, you're not getting to what's called the big picture, is what they taught us.
I much prefer to say, okay, we're going from here to there, and I'm going to get there, but I may not be anywhere near you.
Yeah, I think the larger the group, the further spread out it should be, and you just go as regular traffic.
Yeah, and does my memory serve that there was an incident during one of the rides where somebody accordioned into somebody else in the last time that we had one of those rides?
That bike ended up at the shop eventually, and Yeah, I mean, plus you have, when you have 100 people on a ride, you have 100 different levels of skill. But I have to say this before I forget it. But Keith and I were riding back from somewhere on the south side, and we're like, okay, let's try this chips thing, because we were heading toward Dryer.
The side by side.
We did the side by side, and it was hard. And he and I have ridden together for years, and we both know each other's way of riding. I know his skill level, he knows mine, and I mean, we're in sync most of the time. But man, when you're riding side by side with somebody, it's hard to keep that grouping. And it was more work than it was anything.
And I'll say, when I'm riding, there's a lot
kind of fun, but kind of not.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes through my head when I'm riding, and one of the things that goes through my head is I don't like to be in the middle of the lane. I prefer to be either on the right side of the center or the left side of the center.
Yeah, me too.
Depending upon which one you're in, like if you're on a 2-lane and it's opposite traffic, I prefer to be in the outer lane in the traffic lane I'm in. If it's more than that, and it's a lane where there might be a passing lane to the left of you, I generally tend to stay to the left of the lane. But it's absolutely true that those dynamics change while you're riding.
Oh, yeah.
You can see something in a lane that you don't like. You can see something in the other lane you don't like, and you might change up on that general.
It could be a bad lane condition for that matter.
Yeah.
And you just get on the other side.
It just seems to me that I want to stay away from whatever the most traffic is changing to my right or left. And if it's coming at me, I want a little more time to think about it. That's why I would stay to the right of the lane.
Yeah.
If it's coming with me and some of them are merging from the right or merging out of the left, I want to have that extra distance between me and those people on the right that are coming over. And that's why I do it that way. But
I'm usually trying to stay I'm usually in the left side of my lane, making sure that the guy in front of me has me in his mirror. And then, of course, like you, if that part of the lane is bad, and I stay out of the center because that's where all the cars leak their oil.
Yeah, that's the biggest reason why not to go down the middle.
Yeah,
you can look at it and see it.
Yeah, there's just oil all over the middle.
Yeah. And stuff that falls out of a car tends to stay in the middle.
So, but it looks like through this whole thing right here with the lane splitting, most people are kind of for it. I mean, most of the riders are going to be for it anyway, I would say.
Yeah, maybe that's just the freedom nature of the way bikers are, I suppose. But, if it makes maybe you've heard the thing, the old rube about there are old bikers and bold bikers, but there's no old bikers. Oh, no old and bold bikers. That's true. Yeah. I think the more you ride, or at least it's true with me, and you said it twice today, as you get older, you become more conservative. You want to have less impact to your life if something bad goes down. And you just realize, okay, well, I don't want to have to recover from something.
Except the fact I still motocross and hit jumps.
Yeah, but that's different. That's like a personal choice of doing something
that is
within your scope or outside your scope. And if something happens, it's your fault.
And that's actually another good point. I didn't even think about that is not only are you putting yourself at risk, but you're putting others at risk. If I'm out on the motocross track and I'm hitting this, 60-foot table, I'm mainly just putting me at risk.
Yeah. I mean, if you crash, everybody else can look at it and go, wow, that was stupid.
Wow, that was bad.
Right. Yeah. Why'd you do that?
Hope that old fart gets up, right?
Right. And it reminds me, we had a customer come in this week. You weren't there, but I was. He wanted an estimate done on a motorcycle. And he came in. He said, hey, I called about getting an estimate done for insurance. I said, okay. I said, can you roll it up here and I can take a look at it? He goes, no, it's in the pickup truck. And I said, okay. So I went out. It did
roll.
No, it did not. So I went out there.
I remember that call.
And it was hit so hard that it separated the entire front end of the motorcycle from the steering stem forward was just ripped off. The rest of the bike was laying in the back of the truck. The broken parts of the front end were laying on top of it.
That he didn't tell me.
Right. Yeah. So I went back and looked at it and I said, well, this is a total.
It's totaled.
And it was a 93 Suzuki, that custom looking thing.
Oh, okay.
Somebody out here knows
the
what
M109 or whatever it is.
No, not that. The chopper looking thing with the body work around the steering stem. And he was a young guy. And it was funny because we came in and I said, well, that's a total. He goes, no, I don't want it to be a total. They'll pay $4,000 to put it back together. I said, there's $4,000 worth of labor in putting that thing back together. Not to mention that if you hit hard enough to do that, it's tweaked the
Something's
frame, it's broken the
twisted,
engine
bent.
cases,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. I said, nobody's going to give you what that thing's really going to cost to rebuild it. He said, well, how much will it cost to rebuild it? I said, probably $12,000, and it's a $3,000 bike at best.
Yeah, go buy a turnkey one.
Right.
So
he said, hey, you know,
whole other show.
I had a really bad wreck. I had vertebrae fused. I had collapsed lung. I was in the hospital for 6 months. And he said, but I'm back riding again. And I said, well, what happened? And he said, oh, I got it on video. So he whips out his phone.
No way.
He has it on video. He whips out his phone. He was in his own neighborhood. The guy that actually crashed him had a video camera at the end of his driveway. And this rider,
oh no,
the rider
he
was
turned
going
in front of him.
Yep. The rider was going down the street, shorts, flip-flops, wife beater, no helmet. He told me the whole thing.
Brilliant.
He was probably going 50 miles an hour in a residential neighborhood. A Camaro was coming from the right side of the video and turned left into the driveway right in front of him. And he hit it full force. No stopping of any kind, no evasive action. He went over the car, landed on the road. You could see him tumbling. And they used the video from the guy that hit him in court to prove it. And the guy gave it to him to do the proof.
Wow.
Which I thought was interesting because
brilliant.
So I'll get to my point in a second. When he crashed him, he said, that was my fault. I had no turn signal on. I was pulling into my own driveway. I was paying no attention to you, whatever. And so this young man said, well, I want to get the most I can out of this. And I said, well, there's no doubt in my mind, if this happened this way, you've got a personal injury lawyer. Right. And he said, I do. I hired Keller and Keller. And it was like the TV commercial, perfect example of the TV commercial. Where if
those things are horrible.
And I said, wait a minute. I said, why are we talking about the concern you have about $3,000 for this pile of junk when you're going to get $250,000 in damages because the guy turned in front of you and nearly killed you? And he said, oh, I know, but I really wanted that bike back and I really want it fixed. And I said, no, you know, let's just go get another one.
I'm not going to say anything.
But I guess my point is,
he might be watching.
Yeah, maybe. He was in his own neighborhood. He was going down the street. He was probably, I think he said he's 6 or 7 houses away from the guy that hit him. And I just thought, well, it can happen to anybody at any time if you're not paying any attention.
I wonder if it was brought up that the fact that he was probably 20 miles an hour over the speed limit.
It was obvious when you saw the video. I mean, he was really honking down the street. You could tell it wasn't a residential speed.
I'll say that when I come down my residential street, it's 20 mile an hour, but I'm probably doing 30. And when someone's coming north on the street, I'm assuming they're going 20 or 30
at least,
not 50. So I would probably have a tendency to, he's far enough, pull in, other than the fact that I've been a professional driver for many, couple decades.
So I'm seeing Andrew Mitchell's comment here. He says, lane split, if stopped due to an accident with emergency vehicles already on the scene, you want to clear the situation. Absolutely. You want to do that. And I know there are some people, whether they're in cars or on bikes, either one, if they're sitting at a stoplight, and now some of the new, relatively recent stoplights have a white light at the top. I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but in the intersection, there's a white light that blinks. And when that white light's blinking, whether you can hear it or see it, it's an emergency vehicle approaching the intersection.
Oh, okay.
And they're on almost all the big intersections anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that light can get ahead of you and you might see that light blinking.
That's probably for deaf people.
Maybe. Yep. But if you see that light blinking, it can be dangerous for you to stop if everybody else is going on a green light. So you have to think about that. And then to Andrew's point, if you got to get in another lane to get out of the way, a pull off lane, the curb, whatever, to get out of the way of somebody doing that, do it.
Yeah. And you still got to do it safely.
You want to survive it all.
Okay.
Stop speeding through your neighborhood. That's what it says.
You didn't bring a tool, did you?
I did. I brought something. So, thanks everybody for joining us for this talk. I'm a little surprised that everybody says, okay, let's do lane split.
Hey, most of them are for it. Let's go.
So
legislation.
Guess people that have been doing it longer don't necessarily know what's right. Yep. So this is my suggestion. This is just an easy one, but this is a baggie that has a damp cloth in it. Sometimes you need this, and you can carry it on your motorcycle. This one's been in my toolbox on my motorcycle for a year, and it's still damp because I haven't used it. But you might need to use it for a list of reasons.
And I don't see any mold.
No, there's no mold in this one. I think of this. I got this free with Flitz, but good thing to keep with you. It takes up no room at all, and you can take it with you.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Hey, there's Tom McConnelly. How you doing, buddy? Hey, thanks for tuning in. We will see you next Tuesday, 7 o'clock. Hopefully you enjoy your upcoming weekend.
We'll either have Keith Carlson or Skylar Blades when he comes back from Epping, New Hampshire.
Yeah, Keith Carlson, keep him in your prayers and your thoughts. He had some eye surgery. He had a detached retina. He's out of commission for a little bit, so send him a note, and his wife will probably relay it because he can't read texts yet.
Yeah, so I have a joke that I heard this week that's pretty good.
Oh, so we're not ending the show. Let's
What
go.
What do you call a midget fortune teller criminal?
Oh no, I'm not even going to guess.
A small medium at large.
Oh man. All right, we're out of here on that note. See y'all later.